I'm Ariel.
And I'm Maxyn.
And now we're going to talk about transmisogyny.
Transmisogyny is a particularly torturous oppression experienced specifically by trans feminine individuals. It is a specific intersection of transphobia and misogyny. Julia Serrano, who coined the term, defined it as the interaction between traditional sexism and oppositional sexism. Traditional sexism is the idea that men are inherently better than women. And oppositional sexism is the idea that these gendered categories of men and women are immutable from when they were assigned at birth. Therefore, trans feminine individuals, or transfems, face not only traditional sexism because of our femininity, and also oppositional sexism due to being trans, but also transmisogyny due to the specific direction of our defiance of the gender we were assigned at birth.
Transfems of color face additional interactions between the oppressions of transmisogyny and racism. Black and brown transfems in particular are victims of violence at high rates. As white transfems, our white privilege exempts us from these experiences and shields us from the worst effects of transmisogyny.
A way that transmisogyny often shows up is in the idea that trans femmes are a threat to cis women or a threat to, quote, women's spaces. This has happened to me in a Taiko space where the class of people who have the most power and representation were described as male-bodied people or male-bodied performers. Not cis men, but male-bodied. This made me feel as though I was being viewed as an infiltrator into, quote, women's spaces, or like I was a threat, when in reality, trans femmes face not only the same misogyny and marginalization as cis women, but additionally transmisogyny from all transmisogyny exempt people.
When I've personally advocated for converting single-user restrooms in Taiko spaces to be gender neutral, people in leadership positions have told me men are messy and women shouldn't have to deal with that. And also, women should be able to use a single-user restroom and open the door without having to worry about immediately seeing a man on the other side who might come in and trap them. Hearing this made me feel awful. I misgendered in Taiko spaces all the time, and I especially don't want to have to deal with being misgendered and screamed at while I'm just trying to walk into a single-user restroom. Or worse, being attacked or having the police called on me when I'm trying to use a women's restroom or a women's changing room. And so in certain places when gender-neutral restrooms aren't available, I deal with Taiko practice while really having to pee, or Taiko performance when I really have to pee. I really shouldn't have to deal with this.
This idea that trans femmes are some threat comes up in ideas about our bodies and desirability. Often we are portrayed to be disgusting or shameful. In my own Taiko experience, I've received negative reactions of disgust or confusion when I would decide to shave my legs or grow out my hair, let alone wearing feminine clothing. And I've also, on the flip side, received these backhanded compliments of, oh wow, your eyelashes are longer than mine, as if it's surprising for that to be true for me because I'm a trans femme, where it wouldn't be for a cis woman.
In a Taiko class before me, there was a child, a preteen, who I had never spoken to and didn't even know the name of, who I learned was afraid to go to Taiko class because they would see me in the hallway, all because of my gender and the clothing that I was wearing. I was shocked and surprised to hear this. How did we get here? Why are we teaching our children to feel fear when they see trans femmes?
In short, transmisogyny exempt people are all too ready to see trans femmes as monsters. This often results in us being given less grace when conflict comes up. I've faced transmisogynistic violence such as being threatened with baseball bats, having someone threaten to have my roommate cut my hair in my sleep when I was trying to grow it out. When I try to bring it up or address it, it's treated as not important, and my insistence that accountability be taken for these actions is portrayed as aggression, and I become disposable to people who claim that they were my allies. It is really easy to justify hurting people and not taking accountability for it when you see those people as monsters.
Transmisogyny also shows up when people mock effeminate men or hold everyone to really masculine behavior standards. These may not seem like a big deal because they're not targeted directly at queer and trans people, but when virile cis masculinity is the only thing that's valued, trans femmes know that they're not safe.
At what was supposedly an all-women's weekend Taiko workshop, at the end of the weekend, one of the participants came up to me and said, "You know, I knew that women could wear men's clothing, but before I met you, I didn't realize that men could wear women's clothing. Aside from being angry for being misgendered because I am not a man, I was confused because didn't we just spend a whole weekend together at a all-women's Taiko workshop?" And what was behind the statement like that the person was surprised that I could wear women's clothing? Was it surprising that I woke up that morning and made it all the way to the workshop without getting attacked or arrested? Was the person surprised that the other people in the room weren't punishing me socially for the clothing that I was wearing? Or that I was able to participate in the activities that weekend without feeling an overwhelming sense of shame about myself? And for the record, all I wanted was to be able to participate in activities that weekend like any other human being in the room without having my gender questioned. These assumptions are a direct consequence of the fact that trans femmes are not being promoted to leaders or seen as leaders even in our society.
So with these things in mind, we have to ask ourselves the question, is the Taiko community a place where trans femmes are feeling safe to be out, are being nurtured? And to tie this to some specifics, I want to ask the question of why were there no trans femmes at Herbie? And to be clear, the charge or the question here isn't why didn't the organizers of Herbie hire more trans femmes? It's not that local and it's not that specific to the people involved. The question is, why aren't there trans femmes in the Taiko community who are being nurtured enough, who are well connected enough to be a part of an event like Herbie? Furthermore, why aren't there more trans femmes out in the Taiko community in general? In particular, why aren't there more trans femmes of color out in the Taiko community in general? We firmly believe that there are more trans femmes who are or did participate in the Taiko community, but either don't feel safe to be out or felt like it wasn't a safe community and were driven out. And as a non-binary trans femme in particular, if the vast majority of the non-binary people in the Taiko community who feel safe to be out are transmisogyny exempt, then that's a problem. So what can transmisogyny exempt people do to help make this better? One thing would be learning to recognize transmisogyny. When you witness it happening, don't let it fester. Try to reduce the harm as quickly as possible, and don't let it go unaddressed. When you notice transmisogyny written into policies, change those policies. Another way to help is to continue asking the question, why aren't there more trans femmes in the Taiko community? And work to make the Taiko community a safer place for trans femmes, especially trans femmes of color. And finally, for any trans femmes in the Taiko community who are watching this, we would love to get in contact with you and connect more. We think you're amazing. So please feel free to reach out to us at any time.